I think we're live.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and you are probably noticing that we have fewer panes on our Hollywood Squares board today. I want to assure you that it is not because Doge has cut our staff by any means. We have a lot of people who actually do have commitments and all today, but we really do have a wonderful core here, joined by one of our three lawyers, Joel Sklar, labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, filling in for the commandeering seat at the helm. And actually, Nancy, you would have almost had to do that. We had to scare Captain Kirk. William Shatner had a medical emergency, so instead of Sulu, I guess we've got veteran journalist Nancy Derringer taking the helm for co-founder Alan of Deadline Detroit, Alan Lingle, who
At least
unfortunately could not be here.
I don't have to mess around with Fishman's crappy mic or whatever the hell it is. It's always the problem is always coming from Fishman, but we love him so much it doesn't really matter. So
I miss him too.
Yeah.
Steve is not in. Alan, unfortunately, is having to attend to a funeral for somebody. So thoughts and condolences going out to Alan and the family of the deceased. Well, that simply means that we, the quartet or the quad, are going to have a whole lot more to discuss, and actually some things that probably are just sort of cropping up now. First of all, let's talk about how last weekend it seemed as though President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and pretty much every major conservative voice, both in and outside government, traveled to Glendale, Arizona, a site of at least 3 Super Bowls so far, for the Charlie Kirk Memorial. Here you saw a variety of speeches that were being offered, and this sort of comes in the midst of what we also saw happening with broadcast television, where the week before, Jimmy Kimmel was suspended by ABC and parent company Disney for allegedly making insensitive comments. He was reinstated on Tuesday, and we have, of course, some video of Jimmy Kimmel returning to the air. Nancy.
Okay, let's hit it. Hang on one second. I'm a little slow on this stuff because it's multiple screens here, but let me just do it.
I want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it, nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way.
He also praised Kirk's widow during this past weekend's memorial for her husband.
On Sunday, Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow.
But Kimmel was also back telling jokes, taking a jab at President Trump.
You almost have to feel sorry for him. He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly.
After the taping of the show, President Trump weighing in overnight, blasting ABC's decision to put Kimmel back on the air.
What can you do?
Quite a bit covered with that, but there was a point that I thought was really interesting that he mentioned. First of all, Erica Kirk, widow of Charlie Kirk, did indeed forgive his alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson. But what was really noteworthy was who followed her on the stage in Glendale, Arizona, and that was President Trump himself, who said, well, I don't forgive, and in fact, I don't like my opponents.
He said he hates them, actually.
He hates them, yes.
Yeah,
and
he used that word. Mm-hmm.
Was that a foghorn or Buddhist chants that we heard?
Oh,
You know,
Okay.
I've always had a problem with this whole thing about forgiveness. Not that I try to forgive, but I think that I don't think people really understand what the word truly means. And I'll be interested to hear the former psychotherapist, Dr. Joel Sklar,
Dr.
chime in
Joel
on this.
Sklar.
To me, forgiveness has always meant this has happened. We're moving on. Okay. I'm not going to keep coming back to it. I'm not going to hold a grudge. I don't have to like you, person who wronged me, but I'm done with you. And you just kind of put it in the rearview mirror. When we talk about, but the idea that you would, even in a horrible situation like this, where somebody has literally murdered your husband, the idea that you would not forgive them somehow, that you would just let them live in your head rent free for the rest of your life, that doesn't strike me as a very healthy way of living. So, I mean, I guess I have to congratulate Erica Kirk on that, but ultimately I kind of don't see it as the profound moment that others do. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, Barb.
There was a very horrible murder back in the 80s, where a family from Detroit went camping up in God, I think they were in Wyoming or somewhere like that. And a guy in the middle of the night slit the tent open, stole their 7-year-old daughter.
Oh my God.
Took her and killed her in the most horrible manner you can imagine. After a manhunt, and they looked for her, and it was a terrible, 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 terrible story. And the mother was a very devout Catholic, and they caught the guy. She went to see him in prison a couple times, and then she came out and she said, I can't live with this. I cannot live with this. And I forgive him. She forgave him. She went deep into her thing. And what happened to her and then he killed himself because he couldn't stand it, right?
In prison?
Or whatever, in prison.
Okay.
But what happened to her after that was she was vilified. Her husband left her. Her life took a completely bizarre right turn because of her. She was like.
But that to me is what forgiveness truly is. It's like, I can't live with this anymore. It's over. Right. And life moves on. So,
but I think forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, we've got to define it, I guess. What really is it? It's not an absence of consequence, right? You're not relieving liability. You're not saying you're not going to get killed in the most gruesome way society can kill you. We're still going to do that.
Right.
So forgiveness, my guess is just your subjective way of trying, just what you say, some sort of acceptance. But I'm not sure. I watch what I watch. I think the words were great. How much they're heartfelt, I really don't know. I can't read that. Much of it may be, religious diatribe to forgive. I'm not sure how performative all this was, quite frankly. When I watched I couldn't really watch so much. What I did watch, I thought was very performative in many ways. And so forgiveness, if you really want to talk about authentic forgiveness, I think it's an acceptance and a resignation of what is, move on, and let the state or God or the universe have its consequence on that, the person you forget.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's also it's confused. I don't want to get too philosophical here, but I think it's confused with reconciliation, which is a whole different thing. You can say, you harmed me. I forgive you. See you later. It's not, let's kiss and make up. I mean, I think that's something that you sometimes have to do with somebody that you live with, or a friend or something else. But you don't, I mean, she didn't have to, that mother didn't have to go visit that guy in prison and take him, cakes and cookies and put money in his commissary account. So, I mean, that's two different things. So anyway, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if it's not too tacky, can I pivot to that, the service itself? I mean, needless to say, I didn't watch the whole thing, But when the pyrotechnics went off, I was like, this is the weirdest goddamn funeral I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, even that it was a memorial service is doesn't mean that that's okay. It just it was just strange. And I'm very uncomfortable with that kind of mega church type of,
the Trump rally
over what is one of the oldest human rituals in our history. How we bury or remember our dead, and the idea that there were pyrotechnics just grossed me out. So
well, and we are joined here by attorney Steve Fishman. Steve, what did you think about the Charlie Kirk memorial? If not, then the Jimmy Kimmel reinstatement in which he of course mentioned it.
I have a couple of reactions. Number one, like everybody else, I was very impressed with his widow and the way she spoke. I was equally unimpressed with everything else that I heard, particularly from Trump. And with respect to the Kimmel thing, I think what it showed there is, and I read a couple of really good articles about it, Kimmel was reinstated because of the response of the public. It had nothing to do with Disney and the rest of those muckety mucks that are always trying to get this approved or that approved and worrying about their own pocketbook. And I think it tells the rest of us a lot, which is that when there's something that you think is awful, get your butt out there like Barbara does and bitch and complain and wave flags and scream and yell. Yep. And it shows that even in these parlous times, as we would say, the voice of the people still matters. That's my reaction to both of those things.
Yeah. And
I thought
canceling streaming service, Disney streaming and cruises and everything else probably helped too. Sorry, Saeed.
What they may not have shown on the main feed, but luckily if people had cameras, was the number of people who were getting up and leaving when Trump was pontificating. He spoke for 45 minutes
right.
At the memorial service, and it looked like there were a lot of people there who just sort of were disgusted by the distraction and his usual braggadocio that was occurring, which I think, though, in order to be fair, I think Trump was preparing himself for his even longer address at the United Nations a few days later, where he spoke for an hour. And here's
after being allotted 15 minutes, right?
Do you know who spoke before him, though? Right before him. Anyone know? It was actually the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, who gave really what had to be one of the really excellent speeches, not only for this particular year, but just in general. It was statesmanlike. It was focusing on bigger issues. He certainly talked without necessarily naming names, the problems or the problem on an individual level that the world faces. And it could not have been any different than what the President of the United States provided, which it seems as though now we have a clear understanding what is his animus with the United Nations. Apparently, they rejected his bid several decades ago to go ahead and rebuild or to redevelop the United Nations site. So the fact that he lost out on a contractor's bid has sent him into a tailspin. Steve, what did you think about his speech?
The reason I had my hand up is literally I was about to say what you said. We had that one out there, and you think that there could be nothing worse, and then you hear that speech to the UN. The thing to me that was the most amazing is that this guy, he thinks he can get away with anything, and he thinks no rules apply to him. I didn't know till I read after the talk that he was allotted 15 minutes, and he goes on for an hour. I mean, 4 times as long as what he's allotted because he thinks he's king and he can do whatever he wants. I wouldn't call it a speech, by the way. I mean, it started out, I love the fact that, what did he blame everybody for? His escalator didn't work. His teleprompter went out. I mean, anything
and the volume of his microphone, which apparently Melania couldn't hear, but I think that Melania, if you looked in the audience, she was just sitting there whispering Trudeau, Trudeau, Trudeau. I think she had her own mantra going. But that in and of itself created another scandal. And I think, Nancy, you've got video about this when it comes to the right wing and the White House wanting to launch an investigation saying that there was a conspiracy to, if not undermine, even harm the president and the first lady because of the escalator, the teleprompter, and the volume. By the way, the latter two are supposed to be in the control of the delegations themselves. So that's on the White House. And as far as the escalator goes, now we find out that it was actually his videographer who needed to get up and have that perfect Trump going up Jacob's ladder image, and he hit the emergency stop button. So let's
go to the video.
Looking around when it broke, thinking, do I walk up these 15 stairs or do I just live here now? But hey, this is a pretty standard inconvenience. I'm sure we will never hear about it again. Unless, of course, there's an entire right-wing media apparatus built on grievance and hyperbole that wants to breathlessly recount it as a harrowing brush with danger.
Trump and Melania were riding it up, and it just stopped. The First Lady lost her balance a bit, but steadied herself, thankfully, and then marched to the top. She could have been hurt.
It came to a grinding halt, and you can even see them kind of slightly lurching forward.
This is serious stuff. It's sitting ducks if, God forbid, there was a security threat.
They could have hurt the most beautiful First Lady in American history.
Oh, my God, you monsters. We're not talking about some Uggo Eleanor Roosevelt here, no. You could have hurt someone hot.
Great. Great.
I mean, I think Jesse Waters from Fox News has to make up his mind. Is he going to go ahead and be enamored of Melania Trump or Trump himself? Because I thought he believed in monogamy. But first of all, here you see a president getting up there and giving every grievance in the world, along with taking credit for things that he really didn't do, like resolve the conflict between Azerbaijan and Albania. Yeah. But the fact that here is someone who represents the United States, what does it say then about the United States on the world stage?
Nothing good.
Yeah, I mean, you have an insane president. That's what it says. This guy's a babbling idiot. He doesn't understand shit. He's corrupt as hell. He's fucking nuts. That's, I think, what it tells us. We lose reliability, respect, authority. They have their doubts about the USA that we have. There's absolute division. We're obviously weak. So I think it says the worst possible thing. And it's just, again, he's just become old man ranting, and that's what we're going to be seeing for forever here. And the other thing is that every time there's anything, a mosquito bite, it's like in Spinal Tap. There was an 11 on the volume. Everything's a fucking 11. Oh my God, everything's an 11. So it keeps you at a heightened state, keeps the chaos going, but it's crazy. Everything's
well. To use the metaphor of Spinal Tap, then, Joel, I think that Stonehenge is not the only thing that's tiny. But that's a whole different game.
Because our Stonehenge was in danger of being trod upon by wolves.
And a fly buzzed around. Okay.
I wish that there would have been images of people like President Macron and others in the audience knitting while he was speaking.
Or just jaws dropping, just complete disbelief.
So Melania probably wished she had her giant hat that day.
So on the topic of the UN and things that did happen, it looks like several countries did use the opportunity of the world stage at the UN General Assembly to formally recognize a Palestinian state, including Great Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal, and France. Much to the chagrin of Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who just finished his speech in front of the UN General Assembly. And if you think people were walking out on Trump at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, there was, and I have to use the term, an exodus out of the General Assembly.
And he kept talking. He just kept talking, but the room practically emptied.
And there was applause for the people that were leaving, I believe.
Netanyahu has been known for having some very creative visual aids at the UN, including one that was one of those cartoon bombs, and to show how close Iran purportedly was to being weapons grade nuclear active. Today's was a bit simpler. It was text. It was a list of 5 places and countries or peoples that yelled death to America. And it was Iran, and it was the Houthis, and it was Hezbollah, and it was Hamas. And so basically, Netanyahu was notifying the United States, like, see, I've gone ahead and taken care of everybody who yells in the street, death to America. Here's the invoice. Who's taking whom seriously, or am I asking the wrong question now? Steve.
I'm glad you asked that. I get the feeling, and again, keep in mind, I don't watch television, so I'm getting it from just reading. I don't think that the rest of the countries of the world are taking Trump seriously in any way, shape, or form. I think they spend an awful lot of time, and particularly Zelensky, they spend a lot of time figuring out ways to somehow get him to do some of the things they would like to have done, while recognizing at the same time that A, he's an idiot, B, he is getting to be older and more senile, and C, you never know what he's going to do one way or the other. So with respect to him, I think that's the reaction that the rest of the world is having. With respect to Bibi, he doesn't care at all what England, Canada, Australia, or anybody has to say about anything. It helps him with his base. You guys got to remember who he's speaking to in Israel. He is not speaking to my sister and the people in Tel Aviv. He's speaking to that base of his. And as I've said every single week, as long as the Americans, as long as Trump and the United States government allows him to continue doing what he's doing, all the rest of it is noise. I'm telling you, it sounds good. Macron can say, and the Steimer can say, and blah, 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 but it's not accomplishing anything. The only way anything's going to happen is if the United States says, this is it. That's it. Genug. Genug is a Yiddish word for enough. Mm-hmm. That's what somebody needs to say is genug already.
Can I ask you a question?
Isn't that just gung backwards?
At services, since we write Yiddish and Hebrew right to left, which you well know, it's not backwards, actually. Don't pretend like you don't.
But Steve, as you well know, I speak the Queen or now the King's English. So
just one question though. I wasn't in services for Rosh Hashanah, and I'm curious to know if there was a sermon about Gaza, about Israel, or did they avoid that?
Well, let me help you out with that, Joel. Steve.
Yeah,
I can tell you that at Congregation Chartzetic, there wasn't a mention of anything like that. There was an oblique reference in the first sermon by our chief rabbi, and I got it, and I think a lot of people of a more liberal mindset who don't like what's going on in Israel or in Gaza got it. But you got to remember, Joe, and you know this,
I know
there are way too many congregation members, plenty of whom have A, dollars, and B, influence. There are way too many members who think like Bibi that you can't expect any rabbi, at least at a conservative shul, and certainly not an Orthodox shul, to give any kind of talk like that. I did read about the sermon given by a rabbi in New York, but it's a hugely liberal congregation, and that rabbi talked about it. But you're not going to find that here, in my opinion.
Do you think it'll change maybe on Yom Kippur? Would there be any reason maybe because no? All right.
No, everything on Yom Kippur is going to be about individual stuff. And, there are too many easy sermons to give to take a chance on alienating. And don't forget it. Chartzetic, you've got a couple thousand people there.
Oh,
you alienate 500 of them, 300, 100 of them. You've got problems. And, the gelt meaning money for you guys who don't speak Yiddish, the gelt still rules.
That's absolutely correct. Okay.
I know what gelt is.
How many people here do you think haven't spun the dreidel and gotten the chocolate coins, man?
Everybody knows what gelt is.
You don't want us to start singing the dreidel song, Saeed. So let's move on to
the thing that always interested me about the shul at the high holidays was where everybody sits, because wasn't there like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where like they got to get there at a certain time, but to get the right seats, but there's actually reserve seating for the big donor stuff. No.
First thing, as you know, nobody hates Larry David more than me. Okay, so I don't know anything about what Curb Your Enthusiasm has to say. I can tell you at Congregation Chartzetic, dating back to when I was 7 or 8 years old when we were on Lawton and Cortlandt, I can tell you that people sit in the same seats. It has nothing to do with the gelt or anything. Big shots. People, if we've been sitting in a certain seat, Tarzan and I sit in the front row with our families because we like to hear the chaz. We have a fantastic cantor, a chazan in Hebrew,
Okay.
and we have a great choir. We sit there. Nobody would sit in those seats, and all around the synagogue, everybody's sitting in the same seats every year.
Yeah, it's the greatest.
Okay.
Never Christ King in Detroit.
Okay. Okay.
So Fish, you've never had to like have an incident where you said this seat's taken.
That sounds more like a New Yorker. That sounds like a New Yorker.
I was actually trying to be like on the Alabama school bus on Forrest Gump, but sometimes
now you've increased my anxiety. If I'm ever invited to another bar mitzvah or something else in a synagogue, I'm going to have to worry that I'm taking somebody else's seat when I sit.
You won't have to worry during the regular services. It's more on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and high holidays.
It's like a mandatory showing. But like on Shabbos, most people, it's a small services, my get,
Right. Okay.
Some committed guys, though. My dad was among them. He was a committed Saturday shul dude.
He was for sure.
And he loved these holidays, and he would show up as early as he possibly could. He would stay as late as he possibly could.
Really?
He loved it. And he loved fasting.
Okay. There we go. All right. Carry on.
Who loves fasting, man?
Loved it. He loved
Wow.
Loved fasting. It was, Dad, you're killing me.
Yeah, that's
Sun's not down yet. Can't eat yet.
I have to tell you, Mr. Duckett is exactly 100% right. That is exactly what it sounds like. That's exactly what it is.
It's like the Catholics, just like it's funny. That's a big hierarchy.
Yeah.
You know where to go. The Joneses were in the back. So
what? You guys like one day fasting, 2 if you count Tisha B'Av. Try 30, bro.
Yeah, I agree.
Then we're talking.
Much respect.
Well,
but food never tastes better than it does on Yom Kippur. I'll just tell you that. I snack between meals, and I think.
All right, carry on.
So it looks like Trump is now trying to find the 5 families that he can go after, and in fact, he turned on his Attorney General Pam Bondi to say, "How come you're not going after?" Paraphrasing here, "my political enemies." Well, it looks like the Justice Department has now come in under the wire and has issued an indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. A 2-page document. I guess it didn't have to be too long, but 5 paragraphs, and kind of like the 5-paragraph essay that they tell K-12ers to write these days.
I really want to hear what the lawyers have to say about this.
Exactly. What say you all?
Steve knows best.
Wait, go ahead, Joel. I got to turn this phone off.
It's bullshit. It doesn't tell you anything. It's exceptionally sparse on facts. It doesn't have any real facts. It just says that he lied during during his testimony, but it doesn't give you any idea. It says that he lied about leaking information, how we're having a third party do it, but it's exceptionally sparse. It is literally. If you take out the caption, 1 page, 5 paragraphs, and there's very little factual basis at all.
See, that was my takeaway too. And I mean, everything I know about the law, I learned from occasionally subbing for a court reporter, and of course, listening to the Troika here on the week that was. And I looked at that and I'm like, this is it? I mean, this sounds like here, the worst kind of gossip and hearsay, or gossip, it's hearsay. But what about you, Steve? You're the criminal guy.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is going to take a few minutes because I want everybody to hear the entirety of it. Number one, the fact that the indictment is sparse is not unusual. A lot of times you get indictments that are fairly sparse. This one's really, really sparse. But everybody that thinks you're going to get 20-page indictments every time, it's just not the way things work. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, they are required, if this were a perjury charge, which it's not, this is lying to Congress. And obviously I've never represented anyone charged with lying to Congress, but I'm analogizing it to perjury. What they're required to put in there, and they kind of put it in there in this one in count 1, what they're required to say is specifically what it is that you said that's a lie. And I'll give you an example. When I represented Chris Webber, the basketball player, they had charged him with perjuring himself in front of the grand jury. What they didn't do in the original indictment was tell what statements were they, in quotes, that were lies. I filed a motion in front of the judge, And the judge would have dismissed the indictment, but they recognized that they had screwed up. And then they filed an amended indictment. My point being, you're required to say what it is that's a lie. What they have in count one is what they say is a lie. They say they don't use Cruz's name. They say that when he's answering the senator's question, when he was asked, did he authorize anybody to release materials, basically leak stuff? He said no. And in fact, it's yes. The other thing you got to pay attention to, in indictments in general, they don't name anybody other than the defendant. Every now and then they will, if the person who's doing the cooperating or whatever is already out there in the public eye, but most of the time they don't. In this case, person one obviously is Trump, okay? Person three, I'm not sure who that is. I don't know if that's McCabe, the person who, the former FBI director, but person three, it seems to me, is the critical witness. That's the witness. It's the only person who could say to a jury in trying this case, look, Comey told me to leak the materials, or whatever it is that their point is. It's got to come from a human, because where else is it going to come from? You guys think of any other, unless there's a video of him talking to somebody, in private somewhere, which I'm sure there's not. If person three, by the way, happened to tape that conversation, if person three is trying to screw Comey, he could lose. He could lose if the person says this is what he told me, and he particularly lose if he's got a tape of it. It just says him saying it. But the second part is it has to be material. In a regular criminal case not involving Congress, it's got to be material to the investigation. So the lie that you tell, if I ask Joel, are you right-handed? And he says, no, I'm left-handed, and that's a lie, that's still not going to get him indicted for perjury, because it's not material to whatever it is we're investigating. In this instance, it sounds to me like what they're saying is that they were exploring this whole notion of who did leak the stuff and blah, blah, blah. And that was the function of that whole congressional hearing. And Comey lied about it, and therefore he's guilty of lying to the Congress. From what I understand, but I don't have any proof of this, there was another count that they approached the grand jurors with, and the grand jurors wouldn't authorize it. I don't know if that meant there was another person that supposedly was told to go ahead and leak stuff. I don't know if it was just obstruction of justice, meaning obstruction of Congress just means basically what the first count is. You obstructed Congress by lying. That's where the second count comes from. In order for the government to prevail, the jury's going to have to accept beyond a reasonable doubt, A, that Comey did in fact tell somebody else to go ahead, authorize someone, I think is the word they use, to leak, and then B, they're going to have to find that it was material to whatever was going on. Whether they can do that, who knows? And my guess is that person three is probably not your classic snitch. In other words, not someone who's coming in to get even with Comey, and I'm going to get that son of a bitch, and here's what he told me, and I taped it. My guess is it's them straining like crazy, which would explain why the real U.S. attorney who stepped down for this bullshit U.S. attorney, that's why the real U.S. You got to understand one other thing. I don't want to go on and on. When the feds bring a case, when you have real federal prosecutors, like we've always had, real federal prosecutors do not like to lose at trial. They don't want to lose jury trials. They tend to bring cases where everything is pretty much locked down. They don't want to give the defense a chance to do what I do and have frames of not guilty verdicts from federal court. They don't want that. That would explain for sure why the real U.S. attorney, who they forced to leave, didn't want to bring this case. Yeah, maybe there was some indication, but he didn't think a jury would buy it, or he didn't think that a jury would buy it by the 95% rate that they want it to be when they bring a federal case. So that's what I think's going on.
So the moral hazard on this, from what you're saying, is that Trump wants this. He wants the spectacle, but he's also mindful of the fact that there's a likelihood, from what you're describing, that Comey will be acquitted. Is it just simply that he's going to blame the underlings for not prosecuting this in a good way, and so he still wins in his mind?
Absolutely not. We know how he is. He's going to blame the jurors are idiots. The jurors are Democrats. They wake up on the left side of their bed every day. The judge came from the University of Michigan or wherever the judge came from. He's never going to blame his peeps, because they're doing whatever he wants them to do. He'll blame everybody else who's actually doing their job, who's doing the right thing. Those are the assholes, according to him, because he's the chief asshole on the planet.
And he already tweeted that it's about that Comey got a break already because of the judge who's been appointed. He's already tainting everything. I mean, I don't know how you could even prosecute this case when you have the president telling you what you got to do. I mean, this is nuts.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. And this, I can guarantee you what's going to happen. And the judge is going to take this seriously. I can tell you that when you have a client, a defendant in a case, for instance, Jeffrey Feiger, when we had Jeff and Ben, we filed motions about the adverse publicity, blah, blah, blah. Could you get a fair trial? Think about this one. You've got the president of the United States on national television over and over again on his idiot, whatever they call it, Truth Social, with his text messages over and over again. And all it's going to take, if you get a really good judge, they start picking a jury. I guarantee you, if they get that far, they're going to pick them one at a time. There's no way they're going to bring 12 people or 20 people in there and let them hear what everybody else is saying. And if they go one at a time and 18 out of 19 prospective jurors say, I can't be fair, I keep hearing from the president, I keep hearing from it's going to be tough for them to bring this case. That's what I think is going to happen.
Interesting.
All right. Nancy, I think we got some commercials that we should
have
probably
some
show
commercials.
at this time. So let's take a break
we'll
for
be
that.
right back.
In 1937, Detroit was in turmoil. Auto workers were on strike, and union strength was growing. A local minister and part-time labor broadcaster was found fatally injured at the Ford Rouge assembly plant. These dramatic events come to life in the play Forgotten, the murder at the Ford Rouge plant.
The boss has got to sign when you organize.
Actors, singers, and musicians tell the true story of how Detroiters built a union town while searching for clues to solve a mysterious death.
The strength of 100,000.
See Forgotten at Mary Grove Theater, October 10th through the 12th. Tickets are $35 at Eventbrite or at MichiganLaborHistorySociety.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
I'm going to call that guy the next time I get a flat tire because he's here to help. So,
Well, as long as you cover your property taxes, I think then your tire is safe too.
we're in good shape.
We're in good shape. Well, it looks like federal prosecutors are not only going after James Comey, it looks like there's also an investigation underway at members of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick's family and also his inner circle, including his father, Bernard Kilpatrick. So what are we hearing about this story?
I know nothing of this. What are we talking about?
Nothing about this either.
No, does no one read the Detroit News and the Free Press anymore?
It's basically
it's impossible that the statute of limitations is so far past. I mean, that was years ago. What federal?
You're right, but it doesn't stop people from doing it. So okay, well, like I said, that was a news item. So this is why we need Alan.
So it's not a criminal investigation. Maybe it is, but they're trying to collect money is what they're trying to do.
That's what they're doing, yeah.
Oh, so you guys know the restitution that's owed, there's 20 years to collect it. And that might be.
That's what I think it is.
Unless somehow, Saeed, and this would be total speculation, that somehow they're going to accuse people of helping him to cover up. There's no way there's a criminal case going on.
Yeah, I
well,
think
it says, here we go, that the feds have been eyeing a $2.75 million mansion in a fraud probe targeting Kwame Kilpatrick crony. So it looks like there's that this thing just doesn't seem to go away like your typical soap opera villain. Well, moving on then, we also have a case of where the Department of Justice is not following through on an investigation, in fact, going ahead and closing it, involving border czar Tom Homan, allegedly collecting $50,000 in cash from FBI undercover agents. They seemingly is going away. Steve.
It's not alleged. I love when they use the word allegedly when you have video of something. If they're allegedly happening. I guarantee you it is impossible that if federal agents are doing an undercover sting like they were doing, that there's not audio and video of it. And if they want to close it down, which they not want to, they're closing it down on the usual theory. If it's our friend, you can't investigate him. If it's our enemy, go get him. What people should be screaming for is fine. You're not going to charge him. You're closing the investigation down, just like they want to see all the stuff about the pedophile. What's his name? Epstein. We want to see the video of him taking the cash from the agents. You guys don't want to charge him? Fine. But I want to see that big fat fuck taking the money and chortling to himself and probably saying incriminating things like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to get with them pretty soon. That's what everybody should be screaming for, starting with the media and then the citizens. We want to see the Epstein files. We want to see Homan stealing the money, taking the 50 grand.
Yeah, very true.
You had the best remark of all time, Nancy. You said that he had the face he deserved.
Yeah. He really does. I mean, he looks like a bulldog, but that's I don't know. It's not to harsh on anybody's physiognomy, but I mean it's the $50,000 too that kind of strikes me in cash. And I wonder if the reason that this leaked is because Trump, he didn't offer a kick up to the boss or something, even though 50 grand don't change when you're dealing with the United Arab Emirates. But still, I mean, it just goes to show you the mindsets of so many people in this administration. So there you go.
Well, I mean, I think it also shows how the Department of Justice is doing the bidding of the president. But I think it's also showing this inner turmoil that you've got the FBI that clearly seems to have busted him, caught him red-handed, and then the DOJ comes in and pushes down on the investigation that the FBI was involved in, all because of somebody at 1600 saying, nah, let him pass.
He's our guy. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Steve.
See, and what nobody knows, I've got suspicions because I know how the FBI works when they're doing these kinds of investigations, but nobody knows what led up to it. They didn't just wake up one morning and call the guy and say, hey, I'm bringing you 50 grand. There was all kinds of conversations leading up to it, meetings leading up to it, suggestions, and every single one of them, keep in mind, everybody who's listening, every single one of those conversations or meetings, if it involved the agents, are taped and maybe videoed, but they're definitely taped. They've got that evidence right out of the guy's own mouth. And think about it. How much more of hypocrisy can the guy have than to stand up there on his Fox News and talk about how terrible these people are who are only working their ass off, but they came in illegally. They're lying sacks of shit. They did this and they did that. And this is the same guy that's stuffing 50K. And it'd be interesting for regular citizens to see what that looks like. Because not that many people, including the people sitting even on this panel, sophisticated people that you all are, even Gross Pointers like Nancy, have ever even seen $5,000 in cash, let alone $50,000.
I want to know if it came in a potato chip bag, like that woman who tried to pay off the reporter in New York on behalf of Eric Adams. So another friend of the president.
Or now you can just roll the bills and put them in a Pringles tube. So, there's so many different ways. But let me ask you the question then, Steve. I mean, is there the possibility that given the power that the president is wielding, that he could authorize the DOJ, the DHS, the FBI to scrub and get rid of any evidence that might incriminate him?
Wow.
That's really two questions. The first question is a simple answer. Could he ask him? Of course he can ask him, and he will, because he has no sense of anything other than himself. The question is whether or not the people will do it. That's the real issue. And I suppose what we're all waiting for, we're waiting for John Dean, we're waiting for somebody to say, wait a minute. And by the way, if you get anybody, just anybody that decided to change their mind, all they need to do is just tape everything that they hear from everybody. Because remember, it's legal to do that. As long as you consent, you can tape somebody else's conversations in person or on a telephone. So the question is not whether he'll do it. Of course he's going to do it. He'll do anything he thinks he can get away with because he's been able to get away with a lot. But I'm hoping that somebody or somewhere is going to say, no, fuck this. I ain't doing it. And maybe do a little more than that, get him on tape like we had him with Raffensperger, until what's her name?
I want to have a career after this is over. Yeah, so I won't do it. But.
Well, the sad thing is, I think that it's not going to be a John Dean. It's going to be an Omarosa Manigo Newman. It's going to be somebody from his reality TV world who's feeling scorned because he didn't show her enough love. Yeah.
But you got to remember, I'm telling you, I've said it 10 times in this thing, the difference between those days, nobody had anything on tape. Well, except for Nixon, the idiot, from talking on the phone. but in general, people who came forward with information, that's why we won so many jury trials back in those days. All it was the person saying so. But it can be Omarosa, whatever her name is. If she comes in and she's got a video of it, it's not her saying so. It's the person who's talking saying so. That's why the Raffensperger case was a lock if they wouldn't have screwed it up. It was an absolute lock. All you had to do was listen to him talking, not what Raffensperger said or anybody else said, and he convicts himself. That's what I'm talking about in this kind of situation.
Well, we now know that those 18 and a half lost minutes was Nixon singing a cappella to MacArthur Park. So... Well, up in at Mackinac, there was the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference setting the agenda for 2026, and from what I understand, gubernatorial candidate John James was up there and seemed to have gotten a bit of a frosty reception. Seems like he was strutting around.
No, he didn't go up.
Oh, he didn't go up there.
Maybe he left before the premiere event that they went.
Maybe it's before the premiere event. Yeah, but it seems as though he was
tickets for a mixed martial arts contest somewhere else.
I thought he was just being supercilious, but apparently at a closed door meeting without reporters in Lansing, he was also still beating that axe into the ground about stolen elections in 2020 and how he was going to get to the bottom of that. Is he trying to get Trump's attention to say, please endorse me, because it seems like I'm not sure who his audience is. Nancy.
One of and you preempted my schmuck, but fortunately I have a backup.
Just by talking about him doesn't mean it disqualifies you.
Okay, well, whatever. And it's one of the hardest things to watch and cringiest things to watch in this era is this kind of like, B-league politicians who are trying to get the big boss's attention by acting like him, right? And so, Mr. Helicopter Pilot, Mr. War Hero, blah blah blah, it suddenly starts to talk like Trump. And what happened was somebody asked him something about the 2020 election, and he claimed that he got screwed. That was his language. I was screwed. And then he vowed that he would get his retribution for it. And to me, I mean, I never was going to consider voting for John James in the first place. But that is so disqualifying to me because that tells me he doesn't understand how elections work. He hasn't done or he hasn't done the research, the perfunctory research to understand, why this loss happened. Why the Trump loss in 2020 statewide in Michigan happened. Or 3, he doesn't really believe it at all. And he's just pretending to be a tough guy on, in front of this Kent County, gathering that he was at where he was recorded, Steve, by somebody obviously with a phone out. So, I don't see how anybody can claim to be qualified to be governor if they honestly and truly believe that the 2020 election was stolen, because everyone with 2 brain cells to rub together knows that it wasn't. But he just, I've said on this show, like Steve said many times, he's the emptiest suit that I have seen in quite some time. And that's what this is about. He's just filling up his emptiness with, I'll try to be the boss now for a while. And, it was disgusting in a lot of ways.
What do you think are the implications then that, and there's a very strong likelihood of this happening, that the Republican candidate for governor is going to finish 3rd in the voting next year? What does that say for the brand for the Republican Party in Michigan?
Nothing good, but do you really think that's going to happen? I mean, as pissed off as Republicans are, you really think he's going to finish 3rd if he gets the nomination. I saw the other people sitting on that stage up in Mackinac, and I mean, boy, oh boy, Perry Johnson,
Michigan Republicans, man.
I know. I mean, Michigan Republican, exactly. And I also thought, and this is just a ridiculous tangent, but I was looking at this picture that was shot at like stage like the stage was elevated at Mackinac, and the photographer was like right at the stage on the floor of the stage level. We got to talk. We have to have a talk with these guys about their socks. I mean, one had the Pete Hegseth American flag socks. Another had these ridiculous, like Wicked Witch of the East socks. The stripes and everything. And I'm like, what is it? It's like black or navy. That's all you need to know. Just put on the right socks. Don't embarrass yourself. But anyway.
Oh, Nancy, you need to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and stock up on some really cool patterns there.
These are not rock and rollers, needless to say.
No, they're so bad. He came in fourth. He came in fourth in the straw poll after Eric Nesbitt, Tom Leonard, Mike Cox. And yeah, he received 14% of the vote in the straw poll.
Okay,
so
well, he's got the DeVos money behind him. So
I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now. I think that the GOP is going to come in third because whomever's the Democratic nominee, whether it's Gilchrist or whomever, and then you got Mike Duggan. I just don't see, or Jocelyn Benson. I just don't really see the GOP being able to do better than those two. So let's just see. But I'll say that right now. Okay. Last thing I thought we'd talk about before going to our last segment is we got to talk about the Tigers. I mean, this was just a colossal decline. They did win yesterday against the Cleveland Guardians, and apparently now they are tied. But for a team that was something like 20 games ahead of anybody after the All-Star break, and then there was that really tragic situation where Detroit pitcher Tarek Skubal hit someone in the face at 99.4 miles per hour. Luckily, was not seriously injured. I mean, fractured some stuff, but was all right. Is it better that the Tigers just simply they just go from here to Lakeland? Is it better?
Once you get in the big dance, anything could happen. You can get hot. Things happen. You can just get on a roll somehow. I just want them to get in the playoffs, see what they do, and once you're in,
Joel, your optimism it knows no bounds. You are clearly high for the high holidays.
Well, I thought that's where the high holidays were for. I thought Rosh Hashanah was like Rosh Hashanah kind of guy. I don't know.
We'll have dinner. I was just. I occasionally I wake up to baseball, but. That one was kind of hard. Steve.
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, it seems to me that over last year and this year, a lot of this was magic that they were able to get to the point that they got to, because really, Skubal has carried them for 2 years. Mm-hmm. When Olsen got hurt, they lost another starter. Mize has been decent. Flaherty's been who knows. But when they had a chance to do something, the general manager chose to sign two or three washed up pitchers. Don't go after another hitter, even though they only got, other than Dingler, nobody's hitting over into the 260s even. And if they don't make the playoffs at all, which would be really interesting, I want to see if the general manager tells the truth to the public, who are all going to be outraged, and says, look, we weren't good enough. We knew we weren't good enough to win the whole thing. So we didn't want to give up our prospects, and we just did what we did. Or is he going to bullshit and say, well, weird things happen and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
To me, and then one other thing that I was talking to somebody about, this kid Melton that they brought up, I watched him throw the first 2 games. He sure looked like a major league pitcher to me. Struck out 9 guys, had a shutout, hit 5 or 6. All of a sudden, Hinch put him in the bullpen and started putting these old guys that they signed, Morton and the other guy, Paddock, and that's when everything went in the toilet. But sports is weird. You don't have the dominating squads like you used to have, and there's streaks, and they just happen to be having their streak at a bad time. So
Lynn Henning wrote a real good article that kind of says what you're saying, that there's still a really young core, and he didn't want to move any prospects because they're really not ready. And he said, don't freak out and want his head because they didn't make it or they fell apart. He said, give them a year. They're going to be in their prime, but they're not there yet.
So here's the thing about, it's the last thing before the thing. Here's the thing about prospects. I always remind people, when the Tigers traded for Miguel Cabrera, who by then had already was hitting 330 every year, he was a superstar. They gave up 2 big-time prospects, Cameron Maybin and the pitcher, I forget his name. And a lot of people went, oh my God, we're going to give away these prospects. And I remember telling people that, Cabrera was in the other league. I said, before you start screaming, have you ever seen this guy hit? Well, no. I said, wait till you see him hit. You won't give a shit about prospects. If you can get a guy like that. I don't know what was available at the time, but prospects in baseball, unlike football and basketball, prospects don't always pan out. Football and basketball, you can count on it pretty much. So.
Well, that's the nice thing about trades. I mean, I seem to recall that the Detroit Lions traded Matt Stafford to LA Rams, and we got, let's see, Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs, just to name a few.
Exactly.
And the Lions have scored 90 points in the last 2 games combined. Looking not too bad. Nancy, why don't we go ahead and run the commercials since we didn't in the beginning, and then right from there, let's go to our last segment.
Let's not run the commercials again. Let's just go to the last segment.
Okay, let's go to the last segment.
All right.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Nancy's Jedi mind trick worked this week as well. So, all right, Steve, who do you have as your schmuck?
Well, even though somebody said that oh my God, we can't do the schmuck because we talked about him, I'm still doing it even though we talked about him. Tom Homan, because hypocrisy is my favorite. Hypocrisy is my favorite characteristic of the schmuck of the week. And anybody that can be more of a hypocrite than this guy is, I can't imagine who it'd be. So that's my guy, and I'm hoping like hell that people start screaming, and eventually we get to see the video and hear the audio, and then we can all decide, was he a crook? Or was he just some really wonderful guy who just, I don't know, didn't think 50,000 was any big deal? Anyway, Tom Homan, schmuck of the week.
There we go.
Okay. All right, Barb.
Boy, oh boy. I am really torn between 2, but I guess I will go with Pee Wee German, also known as Stephen Miller.
Oh.
Truly terrifying speech at a memorial service for a guy that was murdered by a right-wing activist. Our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion, our lineage, our legacy, back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced blah, 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 blah. We stand for what's good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And of those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have?
That's what he's doing.
It sounded better in its original.
German.
And coming after whether Erica Kirk was sincere or not, and I'm going to choose to believe that she was, because what a horrible thing to happen under any circumstances. And if you're a Christian the way that they claim to be, then that was the proper way. But that was as disgusting, maybe more disgusting than Donald Trump, who was doing what Donald Trump always does. This guy, that was really fucking creepy and horrible.
Yeah,
so
cool.
It was.
But you can't forget RFK Jr., Dr. Oz, and our big orange dope blaming women for basically blaming women for autistic children for taking a drug. So that's it.
Joel.
Okay, I got 2. One, Corey Feldman, just because I can't stand him, ever could, and he's on Dancing with the Stars, just spark me. Hate him. You ever see him try to dance like this? It's like, Corey.
I would never think you were a Dancing with the Stars fan, but okay.
No, I can't. I've never watched it, but I saw that he was like, how could he? Okay, so, but Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor who presented the indictment, she has a huge background, not really huge, in insurance defense. She has no prosecutorial background whatsoever. She's a shill, obviously, but I just wonder if anybody contemplates at one moment, what have I done? You know, what am I facilitating? What is my responsibility? How will I be remembered? You know, I just don't see any of that in her or the administration. And, you know, there's some insignificance that each of us have. We're here for a short period of time. And these people think they're here maybe forever because that's how they're acting. And the shoes at the end of the foot someday, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Nancy.
I got a couple. I've got to go first with, I had John James, but then the second name on my list is Charlie LaDuff, who this week wrote a column. Well, you have to remember that some years ago when Matty Maroon was still alive, he granted one of the very rare interviews that he ever gave to the media to Charlie. And apparently he made a friend for life because even beyond the grave, Charlie is still promoting the Maroon brand, saying the Gordie Howe Bridge was a total waste of money, that we should have let the Maroons build the bridge that they wanted to build. It wouldn't have cost us anything, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, friend for life, Charlie LaDuff. But
did it really not cost us anything anyway? Didn't the Canadians build most of it?
Well, yeah, they put the bill, but I believe that the infrastructure work on our side, all that stuff was on our dime. But it's going to be it's a great asset. It caused Alyssa Slotkin and Gary Peters to confirm Christine Nome because they were so excited about that bridge. But I'm going to use my unique status today as the driver of the show. Also, call out the two schmucks who are standing on either side of the
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good.
Okay, so, I mean, keep in mind, this was supposed to be Bobby Kennedy's show, right? He's the one who promised that he was going to, you know, have a major announcement in September about the causes of autism. They have this very frail study that, you know, was done some years ago in Johns Hopkins or something that they're putting all this on. But so who steals Bobby and Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz's thunder? But, you know, President Tubby ass himself, and then stands in the middle while they have to sit there grinding their teeth together thinking, I can pronounce acetaminophen without having to be prompted by some, you know, by somebody in my elbow, you know, it's like, and have to listen to this and have him go, Tylenol, and say Tylenol over and over and over again. I've been lifeguarding in the early mornings this week, and this woman came in and she's like, I just feel terrible. I can't believe I made it here at 6 o'clock in the morning to swim. But because yesterday I was up half the night, and all day yesterday I'm a nurse in a doctor's office, and the phone was ringing off the hook from women saying, can I take Tylenol if I'm breastfeeding? Is it okay to give Tylenol to my baby with a fever? Blah, blah, blah. But they had to stand there and take it. So Bobby and Mehmet, and of course the guy in the middle, but that goes without saying.
Yep.
Well, maybe that was because the UN conspiratorially placed teleprompter broke for Trump in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So speaking of two schmucks related to the Murdoch media empire, number one is the New York Post that decided that even the Comey indictment doesn't deserve to be above the lead. The breaking story is of an ex-New York City financier with Soros ties, meaning ties to George Soros, arrested for torturing, trafficking women in a sex dungeon penthouse, according to the federal prosecutors. The irony, of course, is not lost on all of the other sex predatory activities of those who have ties to, well, the president of the United States through Jeffrey Epstein, or by himself. But here's the New York Post. And the other is Fox 2 News personality Jesse Waters, who is so incensed by what appears to be a conspiracy to make Donald Trump and Water's current crush, Melania, injured on the escalator and all of the other ways to screw him over, that he has called for the United Nations to be bombed or at least gassed.
I would go back. All right. Yeah.
I'm so proud to be an American, or at least I know
best.
I'm free.
It's a golden era. Let's not forget it.
Those lyrics just rolled off the tongue, didn't they, Nancy? That's your mantra. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining in with us, being our audience for another episode of The Week That Was. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Joel Sklar. And thank you, and taking the helm in the absence of our usual Commandant, Alan Lingle, with the last words then, Nancy Derringer.
Drive home safely.
All right. Have a great week, everybody.
So quick. So fucking quick. How does he do that? Okay. Here's some more Yiddish. Sei gesund. Go in good health.
Stop. I'm just like, hang on.
We're still alive.
I keep hitting end
We're still
stream
hot
and- oh,
mics.
here we go.